All right, little story time. Just kind of an analogy and a story. So, had a customer call one time, and they were looking at buying it's a $50,000 to $60,000 vehicle, and the question was, could they pay cash? And yeah, of course you can pay cash. It's legal tender. So they come in. Of course they come in towards the end of the day, like 20 minutes before closing, and they're paying cash for this $50,000 to $60,000 vehicle. And the cash is in shoe boxes, and it's all ones and fives. It's like $50,000 in ones and fives. The story is actually kind of interesting. Their father had this thing that every day when he came home from work, he had two shoe boxes. He opened his wallet, he took every $1 bill and put it in one shoe box, every $5 bill put it in another shoe box, and he just never carried less than a $10 bill in his wallet and saved the money for a rainy day. And he just never, I guess at some point he spent some of the money, but it ended up with his children had inherited these shoe boxes full of money. And rather than go to a bank and exchange it, they just decided to come and buy, a Suburban. So we're counting the money. And of course it's me, the salesperson, the customer, and the other manager, and we're all counting over and over again. And of course we can't come up with the same number. Like every time we stack of bills, you have to have the same person count it, and then another person count it the same. It has to match to accept it's the right number. So we end up going back and getting the money counter from the back. And what we decided to do is each person will count out a stack of 100 bills, either ones or fives, ideally, run it through the money counter, and then, as long as they match, we'll assume it's right. And the thing we found is that every time it was off, like every time the money counter would count either 99 or 101 or even 102 or 98, the money counter would be the one that was right. And it was the human, whichever one of us had counted it, that had bills sticking together or not sticking together, or that the counter was actually more accurate. And I was thinking about that in relation to voting. Imagine it's millions of ballots and you've got a room full of 50, 100 people trying to count over and over and over again. You start to get to the point where you realize, what would be more efficient is if we just had a machine count these. And then you can go logically and say, well, wait a second, then if we're just trusting a machine, and we could go in and tell the machine to change the numbers, right? And it's true, it's a valid concern. The way you check that is by, you run the votes through in batches of, say, 100, 500, 1,000 at a time. And randomly, out of these millions of ballots, you randomly just check stacks of 500 and 1,000 versus the machine's numbers. And if you find a discrepancy, then you extrapolate and you charge more. But when you don't find discrepancies, it's because the machine isn't cheating. And you can keep searching and searching and saying, but what if someone cheated this way? And while it might be true that someone could cheat that way, it doesn't mean that they are. And then reality is that using the simple machine counting and the checking of random ballots, you actually eliminate just about any possibility of actual cheating, because you'll end up getting caught, or you can only cheat at such a small level that it's insignificant enough to change an election of millions of votes. I mean, none of the elections in 2020 were close enough to be altered by 10, 50, 100 votes. It wasn't a close election. It's not even remotely close. That's it.